Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome. We're here for our Wednesday weekly board session. It's 9 o'clock, Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. We're here in the Senator hearing room. We start every board session with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you'd please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We don't have anybody signed up for public comment this morning, and so we're going to go right into our presentation. Katrina, will you please give us a COVID-19 update?
Good morning. For the record, Katrina Rothenberger, Public Health Division Director for Marion County Health and Human Services. Today we have 39 cases of coronavirus. These are our numbers as of yesterday. Today we are expecting quite a jump in that number. And for the next several days, we're anticipating large increases in the number of positive test results. This week, we're really pleased that we have some folks from the Office of the State Fire Marshal. Chad is helping along with his colleagues Jason and Craig in our incident management team, and they're really helping us get organized, developing our bench strength. So the number of folks who can take on those leadership roles in our Department Operations Center, and help us with rotating in fresh people and training those folks. Because we have so many cases and we anticipate so many more new cases, we're considering strategies to focus on vulnerable populations, so primarily folks who are over the age of 65 and living in congregate settings like long-term care facilities, and our first responder safety and health too. And we're working to continue to distribute personal protective equipment. We've gotten a lot of inquiries from around the community of folks who want to donate, and so we're accepting those and getting those out to our partners as quickly as we possibly can. So, thank you.
How have the donations been? Can you give us some numbers?
Well, we had a donation from Yamasa for some food-grade protective gear, so I'm not really sure exactly what that means, but I think they can be repurposed as gowns, and I'm not sure how many there were. We've gotten some questions about homemade masks, and we're not quite at the point where we're accepting donations of homemade masks, but actually in the crisis standard of care, those are allowed. It's the very last possible resort that you want to go to, so we're not quite there yet. And then we did receive an allotment from our state stockpile that we're working to inventory and distribute as quickly as we can.
When did we get that allotment?
Came in yesterday.
Oh, wow. Okay. And that's just a part of what they've promised to give to our region, is that right?
It is, yes, and 70% will be allocated for Marion County, and then 30% for Oregon Health Authority, okay, to support the Oregon Medical Station that's being set up at the fairgrounds. Okay, very good. And I heard from a couple people that you presented at the Salem City Council the other night, and they were concerned about our releasing information about the various patients so that our first responders would know when they're going into a place where there is potential COVID-19. And I understand the concern. It's something that we've shared as well, but we did not make that policy. This is a Oregon Department of Justice interpretation of HIPAA, right? That's telling us what information we can and can't release. And so I just want to make sure that's clear on the record. And I want to thank you for your work, because my understanding was that some people were acting as if you were the one that was withholding information on your own decision making, and I don't think that's fair. I don't think they should have done that.
And if anybody here has worked harder than you to try to fight this virus, I'd like to I'd like to meet them, because I know you've been working around the clock. So I just want to say thank you for your work, and thank you for all that you're doing to keep us and our community safe.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it.
Katerina, I do have a question. I was just thinking as you were talking, we were there when you set up IOC and that, but it's rather small in my mind, 20 by 20 room. Distancing comes to mind. Have you expanded that?
Yes.
Do you open the doors? What do you got going?
We moved to the larger room downstairs.
Good. Yeah, I don't think I want all them in that little room. Okay. Way ahead of me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know maybe on TV they can't tell, but I kind of like this.
Go quit that. I hear you.
Get further from each other up here. We alternated or put a space in between us too. So, yeah, this is a trying time and serious time, and really appreciate the update and the reports and everything that you and your team are doing. And we as a county are here. We're open, and we're doing the best we can to serve the public with the normal things that they need to have done, and to protect our employees and the citizens of Marion County. So thanks, Katrina, for
I did. I announced that there was
keeping
some.
your eyes open. Yeah?
Thank you.
You getting some rest?
Yes.
Good. All right.
Thank you, Katrina. And thank you, Chad, for helping us out. Appreciate it. Okay, we don't have anything on our consent agenda, but we do have a couple of items we want to add to action.
Chair Willis, I would make a motion that we add 2 items and do them individually. I hope it's right order, maybe it doesn't matter. The first motion is to consider approval of an order that allows department heads and elected officials to determine employee job duties and location, and ordering all employees to resume work. I need a second.
I need a second. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
And the second item to add, make a motion that we consider an ordinance amending Chapter 11.30 of the Marion County Code and declare an emergency. That's the motion.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion passes. Okay, and we're going to add those items to the end of our action agenda this morning. So next up, we have Lisa Trowernick, and we're considering adoption of a temporary social distancing policy. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lisa Trowernick, Senior Policy Analyst, and before you is a temporary policy regarding social distancing for your consideration. The board's March 16th resolution authorized development of policies and procedures around this COVID pandemic emergency. And so this policy is temporary in light of that and outlines the rules around social distancing in the workplace. On March 21st, the board, by order, closed some county offices to the public. However, county services have remained in place and county employees have remained working. So this policy just outlines the rules for what it looks like in our workplace. The 6-foot distancing, canceling non-essential meetings, having work and meetings by telephone or teleconference, or conducting work virtually, whatever we can do to keep service going, but keep our employees and our community safe. And so the policy outlines 6-foot distance between workspaces, and also that includes if I'm working with the public, that I need to keep 6-foot distance between me and a public member. Many of our services for the county we have to keep doing, and so we want to make sure that people know that we're creating a safe environment for them to come to, and that our employees are safe in this environment. We've instituted, as you know, all of the cleaning and the guidelines. We're following CDC and OHA guidelines around cleaning and sanitation and distancing, and so this policy just really lays out those rules so departments and employees know what those guidelines are. It's the responsibility of all of our department heads, managers, supervisors to implement the policy, so they need to be creative in their workspace to figure out what is that distance and where can people work. You all have spread out there, but, maybe one of you needs to sit over here or something, just how can we be creative and keep our business going and make sure that people are safe? So that's the essence of the policy. And so department heads and managers need to implement it, and then all of our county employees, contractors, volunteers, everybody that works for the county and people coming to the county really need to follow those rules. The policy will remain in effect as long as the declaration of emergency is in effect.
Very good. Any questions for Lisa?
Yes, Lisa, the standard is adopted mainly from the CDC recommendations,
Correct.
just to clarify.
Yes. And so that it could change. If those change, then, we could change this. And that's where your order of declaration of emergency, we're just monitoring this constantly. And initially, it would have been 3 to 6 feet, and now it's 6 feet, and maybe that changes. But for today, yes. We'll keep track of that.
And to clarify, you mentioned this, but the two sort of bright lines are 6 feet between people at all times, and no meetings over 25, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, and so the other thing for those that are watching, Lisa, for example, the front doors to this building are locked to the public. However, every phone number for every department is posted there. So if I need to, for example, marriage licenses, we had this discussion. If I need to get a marriage license, I don't personally, but if somebody needs to get a marriage license, they would call the number and set an appointment, and somebody will help them with that through these distancing arrangements.
Correct. Our
Okay.
phones are being answered. We're available by email. All of our services continue as they have, well, they're adapted, but we're trying to keep them going as they were to the best of our ability under these rules.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt a temporary social distancing policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. Okay, next up, we have Tamara and Getch, and we're considering approval of an order appointing Michael Mendrin to the position of key volunteer for the Marion County Fair Board with a term ending December 31st, 2022. Good morning, Tamara.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tamara Getch, Director for Community Services. And yes, before you today is consideration of appointing Michael as a key volunteer. Based on Oregon State Statute 565.210, Marion County is only allowed to appoint 7 board members to put on the county fair. Marion County has adopted a protocol and procedure that allows them to bring on key volunteers to take on essential roles in rolling out the fair, and they help us spread the work out. So Michael has come to us with interest and open arms to take on whatever tasks we put before him, and is asking to be appointed as a key volunteer. I also would just mention that in the event that we have a fair volunteer that board member that resigns, we first look to our key volunteer pool for a replacement for that particular spot. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I do. Not a question, just, I noticed in his application that Mike Adams recruited him, and this is the second one in like a month. Mike knows how to recruit people to serve on this key volunteer position to strengthen the board.
He's on many group gatherings, and so he's been, as the chair of the Fair Board this year, he has been pushing this out, saying we need you, and so we have had a couple of positive appointments to the fair in different capacities over the last couple of months.
Well, Mike, if you're watching, thank you for all you're doing to.
He's probably delivering today.
Delivering food someplace,
Yes.
either ribs or bovine or something
Yes.
like that.
He's
yeah.
been brought out of retirement.
Yeah, well, it's good to have him on our team as a volunteer.
I haven't met him, but just reading here, it looks like just what we're looking for. There was one connection to the county, is on the board member of Santana Village Park,
Yes.
and that's been a success in helping the county keep our park services going. Literally took it over and running themselves. they may need some help in the future. That's off the subject. But Chair Wells, I'd make a motion we do approve of the order that appoints Michael Mendrin to the position of key volunteer for Marion County Fair Board with a term ending December 31st, 2022.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you, Tamara, but you're staying
Yes.
Oh, good.
because we're considering approval of an order authorizing Dog Services Manager and Community Services Director to adjust dog services late fees resulting from the impacts of COVID-19.
Correct. So according to the governor's order that minimized or reduced services for veterinarians, we're seeing an impact of people who are not able to get their animal, their dog, vaccinated for rabies. This ties our hands in allowing us to license them because by law they have to have a valid rabies in order to be licensed. For those individuals that have communicated with us, we're creating a list so that we can follow back up with them and letting them know this. And then this order would allow myself and our manager, Ann Potter, to waive the fees as a result of an impact of COVID-19. You originally placed an order in on January 2nd of 2019 that set our late fees, and this would allow us then to amend those appropriately.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
No, just, Tamara, I just see that it's through May 30th.
It
Is that
is.
flexible enough?
Yes, we're poised and ready to come back if we need to, but we're just going to be hopeful and hope that this is just a short period of time.
And it's permissive, it's not mandatory that you do this?
Correct.
Right, got it.
Well, and this is one of these hard decisions
Yeah.
that we have to make where rabies is an issue, and it's a public safety issue, and it's a public health issue, but we're dealing with an even worse public health issue right now. And so we've had the governors asked veterinary clinics and other elective surgery centers to stop doing work because we're probably going to need their gloves and masks and equipment, frankly. And so this is one of these difficult decisions where we're putting a pause on something that's really necessary for our community in order to address something that's even more urgent. So.
Correct. And before you go on to a vote, if I may, I'd like to just talk a little bit, since we're talking about the dog shelter, about what we're doing differently to address the public's needs. Unfortunately, dogs are continuing to come into the shelter, and they need to get back with their families. And so our staff has come up with a work plan that allows individual appointments from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on an as-needed basis. And all public that we need to have conversations with will be either over the phone or through our vestibule, which helps keep that individual from us and us from the public. And any type of things that we can do outside of the shelter, such as viewing a dog to make sure it's their dog, we're practicing that. So we encourage people to do their licensing online. Not online, I wish. Over the phone, they can call our office and we can do some creative things to make that process happen if they have a valid rabies. But we are also we can take payments in various ways. So I just want the public to know if their dog is missing, if it ends up at our shelter, they can find a way to get their dog back into their own home.
Thank you. Thank you for adjusting your services and staying open. Appreciate that.
Ready?
Just one comment. Tammy, a compliment her. She always finds a way to make it work, and count on her in whatever times we're in.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve an order authorizing Dog Services Manager and Community Service Director to adjust dog services late fees resulting from the impacts of COVID-19.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Okay. Susanna, you're up next. We're considering approval of the incoming funds grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Justice in the amount of $569,479.78 for the Family Violence Program Coordinator position and the Underserved Communities Outreach Coordinator position through December 31st, 2022. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I am Susana Escobedo with Marion County's District Attorney's Office Victims Assistance Program. And before you for consideration is, as you said, the renewal of our VAWA grant, which is the Violence Against Women grant that allows us to provide services to victims of domestic and sexual violence. This is one of our longest standing grants. We've been receiving this funding through the Department of Justice for many, many years. And it has allowed us to ensure that we are able to expand services to these victims. In the last year, I've talked to you before about the victims that we served in the last year, with over 8,000 victims served in our program. Many of those victims are survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. We have been able to expand our program to now have more services available to marginalized, oppressed, and underserved communities, and so we're excited about that addition to our family violence program in this coming grant cycle. We'll have somebody that's able to go out into the community and bring services to the community and offer those services that we offer within the office, making those mobile for people so that they can access them where maybe before they weren't able to access those services. So we're excited about bringing on that additional person and expanding that program. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I don't know if you guys had any questions. I also have Pammy Guerra here with us. She's our budget analyst for the DA's office, and she can answer any of the budget questions. But I did want to talk a little bit about the services that we're providing right now to the community. But if you have questions before that.
No, please.
That's what I'd want to know, so
Yeah.
please.
I kind of thought that that might be the question, some of the questions, and certainly I think it's important for me to be able to review that so that people know, where to reach out to. So we are, because of the current health crisis, we are seeing a spike in the calls that we are receiving for victims needing emergency shelter, emergency lodging, immediate need to maybe relocate. What we're seeing is a lot of victims and people in the community are very concerned with having to be at home with somebody that is abusing them or putting them in danger. And so we are fielding a lot of those phone calls. Some of our community partners, because of what's going on in the community, have really pared down what they're doing. And so we're seeing an increase in that, where people are not really knowing where to go and how to access services. We're committed to continuing the services that we're providing, although they are adjusted for now. As you said, Commissioner Cameron, we're not open to the public, but our phones are still open every day, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, like before. We have advocates that are available to help victims try and get those resources that they need, get them connected with shelter or lodging, or if they need immediate relocation, we can help with those services. So it's important for people to know that we're still operating, we're still open. If anybody needs assistance, after our office is closed, there's also the Center for Hope and Safety crisis line that they can call as well, and we're working very closely together with them to make sure that we're trying to meet the need of the community, which is pretty high right now.
Two things come to mind. One, I don't know whether you typically would send them to a motel. Those might not be as available. And the second thing, then, if they are in that situation, how do you feed them with limited restaurants available? Mm-hmm. So, are you dealing with that yet, or?
Yes. So that's a really good question. We have somebody that is continuously updating what services, what resources we have out there, because you're right. Every day it almost seems like, maybe if every few hours we get information that this service is no longer available or they're modifying what they're doing. So I have one of our program coordinators updating that continuously. What hotels are still available and open to take our survivors, and what does that look like? We can provide grocery cards and things like that for people to be able to continue to get what they need to sustain their families. And so we're being really creative about the resources that we're able to provide. And like I said, we're continually evaluating that to see what's available and how can we modify, can we move this around, can we change this to respond to the ever-changing landscape of what we're seeing right now.
Just, Mr. Chair, thank you. I see this 3-year grant,
Yes.
and it's all federal dollars.
Yes.
It's coming through the state, but it's all federal dollars.
Yes, and so it's
Right.
the whole program is fully funded through the grant, so.
And this money it's not just for victim services, it goes to the courts and law enforcement as well?
Well, through the grant specifically, they are able to apply for their allocations as well, but this one specifically goes to
For
our
you
office
guys,
and to
great.
serve victims directly.
Fabulous. Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for all your work.
Chair Willis, I'd make a motion we approve incoming funds grant agreement with Oregon Department of Justice, amount of $569,479.78 for Family Violence Program Coordinator position and the Underserved Communities Outreach Coordinator position through December 31st, 2022.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Did we want to hear any stats, or are we good? It's all good? Okay,
Please, if
no,
you-
no, is that your whole presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Since there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
you, Suzanne.
thank you.
Katrina, you're back. We're going to consider approval of amendment number 8 to the intergovernmental agreement for the financing of public health services with the Oregon Health Authority to add $210,034 for a total of $3,122,461 for COVID-19 response program through June 30th, 2021. Good morning.
Okay, good morning, thank you. So this is state general fund dollars that we can use to support salary and activities like case investigation, housing and food supports for folks who are under quarantine for 14 days, any equipment that we might need for our coronavirus response, and it's added to our intergovernmental agreement.
Very good. And we've been burning hours, so I'm sure this
Oh, yeah.
will be very welcome.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions for Katrina?
Well, it doesn't matter how it happens. I'm a little curious is this something we requested in terms of fulfilling some costs we've seen, or it was just volunteered from the state, and obviously you need all the help you can get, which,
Right, so the state legislature approved several $1 million to be allocated statewide for the local public health response.
since the coronavirus problem?
Yes.
Probably wasn't the state legislature, it was probably the emergency board, right?
Yes, I see.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay. Whose is it?
So, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve amendment number 8 to the intergovernmental agreement for the financing of public health services with the Oregon Health Authority to add $210,034 to the total of $3,122,461 for the COVID-19 response program through June 30th, 2021.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Katrina. Okay. Sheriff Cast, Under Sheriff Wood, and Commander Tad Larson. Wow, we got the whole gang here today. Good morning. We're going to consider approval of a resolution suspending the Marion County Sheriff's Office Capacity Management Plan during the COVID-19 emergency and authorizing the Marion County Sheriff to restrict lodging of arrestees and to allow release of inmates as appropriate to maintain health and safety. Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name, for the record, is Joe Cast. I'm the Marion County
Would you
Sheriff.
pull the mic right to you, Joe? Excuse me.
Thank you. And we're here to talk about that plan, but before we get into that, I just want to point out, over the past couple of weeks, the Sheriff's Office has had to make a series of changes in operational plans for a variety of reasons because of the COVID-19 virus that we're dealing with. It started several weeks ago, and since then we've made quite a number of changes within the office to provide the services that we do. This is going to help us going forward with providing those services and making changes as we need to. Our office, continues to provide services to the community regardless of whether the doors are closed or open to the public or not. And for us, the jail is kind of the focal point of where we bring a lot of folks in society at times, not just the sheriff's office, but all of the other police agencies in the area. Everybody's working extra shifts and providing, again, additional enhanced services everywhere. We're putting more patrol cars out on the road right now. And inside the jail facility, the operations of the jail get impacted with normal patrol operations, let alone when you have all these potential viruses going on. And so I'm going to let the Undersheriff talk, Undersheriff Wood, about some of the specific details, and then we'll close it out up here.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Jeff Wood. I serve as Sheriff Cass Undersheriff here in Marion County. As we had discussed yesterday at the Community Corrections Board meeting, there's been a capacity management plan at the jail in existence since 2000, late 2000, when at the time the Board of Commissioners had asked then Sheriff Raul Ramirez, pursuant to ORS 169.042, to conduct a review of the jail, to take a number of factors into consideration, including what constitutional standards are in place, what state standards are in place, and with that and knowing what our county's budgetary constraints are, they came up with this jail capacity management plan. Within the plan, it delineates what the male bed count is, what the female bed count is, what charges can be booked in the Marion County Jail, and maybe more eloquently in terms of what charges would not be accepted within the Marion County Jail. As I'm sure you all have received more than enough information on, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed things significantly for us, where we are in a position where we believe we need to act much more swiftly in the event that something occurs within any of the divisions, but specifically to the jail. I've had a number of conversations with Bruce Armstrong from legal counsel in terms of what can we do if certain things happen, then what can we do? And the fruition of those conversations were we may need to suspend the capacity management plan, especially if we have to reduce our bed count. The one thing I will say, and I had mentioned this again yesterday, within the state of Oregon, at least as of Monday, and within our Marion County Jail, we do not have any COVID-19 cases. We had one case of influenza at the jail. That individual is in one of our medical cells and continues to be so. We do have other cells, I'll say, available, but with that individual, that's roughly 20% of our medical capacity. I'm not saying that to underscore anything, that these resources are limited, and that is one of which about 20% is being occupied right now. That said, we do have some staff under self-initiated quarantine, including one instance at the jail yesterday. I bring that up only to highlight this information is dynamic and changes swiftly, hence the need to address this issue and our request for a 90-day suspension of the capacity management plan. I will say this suspension of the plan for 90 days doesn't impact Oregon revised statutes in any way. Sheriff and I recently have been trained in our relatively new roles as we approach 1 year in terms of all the ORSs that are specific to the sheriff and specific to the jail. Those ORSs are in place, they will remain in place, and we of course will abide by them. But that said, in the event of, God forbid, an outbreak within the jail or any sort of exposure, there would be a day and a time potentially where we would have to take somewhat dramatic action. That said, I also want to highlight, and on behalf of the sheriff, we will be in constant communication with the board, the district attorney, legal counsel, our police chiefs, and all of our public safety partners in the event we have to make all these changes. But in abundance of caution, we feel that this 90-day suspension is necessary. With that, I will close testimony and turn it back over to Sheriff.
As he said, this is very fluid, as you know. The changes that we've made and the changes we have planned ahead for, it just kind of depends on the what if this happens, then we're going to go there. We brought The jail commander, Tad Larson, is here with us in case we have any specific questions about the jail itself. But we have already put in place, or at least put in, I guess, the idea that if this happens, then we're going to go here. If this happens, we're going to go there. There's so many what-if plans that in conversations with each of you in the past, I couldn't even begin to tell you. It depends on what happens, what we're going to do. We have a lot of experience at the sheriff's office, a lot of experience right here in this room working with all of you to be prepared for when those things do happen. In emergency services, that's kind of what we're trained and what we plan for all the time anyway. But this would just help us be a lot more fluid and not have to go through the process of altering and adjusting to the capacity management plan every time we have something different happen. And that could be from staff issues to adults in custody issues to even outside agency issues bringing something into us as well. So this is why we need this plan right now. And again, it's a temporary change. And we just want to emphasize that. Again, if you have any questions, we have the jail commander here with us, and we're ready to answer any questions you have.
Any questions or comments for our
Yeah,
sheriff?
and thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank you for being proactive, because that's what this is. And this is one of those things that we can foresee we may need to do in the event of this thing changes in an hour or 2 hours or a day from now. I'm sure there's other things that if we could think about them ahead of time. But as you said, Sheriff, there's a lot of experience in this room that's worked together, but never facing this situation. So I appreciate the proactive. I trust, I know the board has full trust, we said that yesterday, in you and your leadership team to make good decisions and keep us in communication as to what's happening, as all the rest of our department heads assured us of yesterday. So thank you for being proactive.
Absolutely, thank you.
Well, I do have a couple thoughts. I wrote down protect employees, inmates, and public, and that's what you and this always does, and to provide that flexibility to act fast as you need to changing circumstances. So I hope this gives you that authority. I would like a little discussion on duration. I just don't see a trip that says that's over, or you're just going to come back when things are better. What's the thought then?
Does it say 90 days?
90 days? I'm sorry,
is
I
90
just didn't
days.
see it.
Yes.
The last question I had, so this was one of the first concerns as this surfaced, that I was worried about. What do we do with the jail? Special population, enclosed employees too. So what's happening, do you know, in other counties? They all are facing the same thing. Is there anybody ahead or behind us, or?
We actually have a conference call weekly with the Oregon State Sheriff's Association on Mondays, where the jail command council is, almost all of them in the state on a regular basis are talking about this, and this has happened since this crisis took place or started. And so we're keeping in touch with what the other jails are doing throughout the state. Some of them are single-celling inmates. Some of them, it kind of depends. Again, it's the what-if scenarios again. It depends on what their area is dealing with. Washington County has a pretty high rate of exposure or of confirmed cases, and so they're dealing with it more, a little differently than what some of the other counties might be dealing with it, just because of the exposure rate. And so everybody's kind of having these conversations so that they can pre-plan the what-if scenarios for themselves as well.
Yeah, I'm real glad you're doing that. That makes good sense. There's no use in stumbling along on our own and find out what works, doesn't work, or what concerns are.
Yes, and that will continue throughout the crisis. I'm certain that's been the plan the whole time. Enforcement Command Council is doing the same thing on Tuesdays. It's becoming kind of the routine right now that everybody's meeting regularly to make sure that we all have an understanding of what each other are doing, so that we get other ideas and other concepts of what's going on throughout the state.
This is more, maybe it's personal and more district attorney, but I've had some trouble I have a house at Tillamook, and I just got a call. I had a summons to testify Tuesday, and now I'm sure they're canceling it. So those things must be happening to us too. That's more the sheriff's office than the parole and probation jail, but corrections, I should say.
It is.
But everything's up in the air then, isn't it?
Correct.
It is, and the courts, we have a phone conference call on Wednesdays with the courts. So Mondays is the jails, Tuesdays is the Enforcement Command Council, Wednesdays is the courts, and I think there's other conference calls that we're having on a weekly basis right now as well.
I'm only smiling because I see flexibility here, and I'm so happy to. So, Chair Willis, I'd make a motion that we approve a resolution that suspends the Marion County Sheriff's Office Capacity Management Plan during the COVID-19 emergency, authorize Marion County Sheriff to restrict lodging of arrestees and to allow release of inmates as appropriate to maintain health and safety. That's a motion.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. I just have a few comments before we vote on this. The first is, I want to thank you for what you're doing to keep us safe. I know that this is, like the commissioner said, not a normal time, and so our normal way of providing law enforcement services doesn't make sense right now, and that's really what this is all about. In particular, we have this situation where we have 400 people in a very small enclosed space, and if we get a COVID-19 outbreak there, not just the 400 people, but all the guards, the sheriff's deputies that are there potentially could be infected, and this could be a total disaster for our community. And so I appreciate that you're looking at this and saying, how do we prepare for a horrible situation? I also appreciate that we're not just releasing a whole bunch of people who are in our jail, because you guys are on the front lines and we have to keep our community safe. I appreciate that you've added additional shifts so that people can see our law enforcement folks in their communities, so that we don't have entrepreneurs taking advantage of the disruption that's going on right now. And I appreciate that we're creating flexibility in our jail. I have a lot of confidence in you guys, so thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for keeping us safe. Okay, so with that, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we added 2 items to the agenda. The first is we're going to consider approval of an order allowing department heads and elected officials to determine employee job duties and location, and ordering all employees to resume work. Jane, do you want to present on this? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Jane Beto with Office of Legal Counsel.
Okay.
For the board's consideration today, the board's office has drafted, and legal counsel has drafted an ordinance to build on top of what happened here on March 21st. The board, faced with continued COVID pandemic, ordered non-essential employees to remain home until further action from this board. Today, the order before you, because this board has enacted a social distancing policy, the order allows department heads the flexibility to direct their all employees' work either through telework, working from home, alternative schedules, or if necessary to work on site, but in a manner consistent with the social distancing policy that the board adopted today. So turning to page 2 of the order, the board, if the board adopts this order, they would direct that department heads have all employees resume work through one of those 4 ways, and that if an employee chooses not to work due to concern about COVID-19 for themselves or members of their household, that they use their leave accruals. Does the board have any questions?
Any comments or questions for Jane?
Well,
I think we should read it for the record. I just want to maybe add an explanation. So on Saturday, we came in here for an emergency session and sent all non-essential employees home because this outbreak was spiraling, this COVID-19 outbreak, and we wanted to make sure that the first thing that we did was to maintain the safety of our employees. Since that time, the governor has released her stay-at-home order, and in that order, she highlights social distancing policies that could be implemented in the workplace to keep people safe. And based on that order and our discussion about what's best for our employees, we feel confident that our employees can go back to work in one of these ways, either through telework, work from home, alternative schedules, or on-site pursuant to our social distancing policy that we adopted earlier today, making sure that everybody stays 6 feet away from each other and that we don't have meetings more than 25 people. Because of that, we feel comfortable and confident that our employees can return to work safely, and it's important for us to continue to serve the public. So thank you for putting this together, and thank you for everybody for being patient with us as we worked through this process.
If I could, my thoughts aren't quite developed, but I got the theme. What I'm concerned about is I'm always worried about consistency, and this is start, stop, change. But that's exactly what this situation needs, and the public and our employees should know that we're looking for, I hate using best practices, but that is what it is, on how we can be safe and still perform the services that are needed and demanded of us. So perhaps not consistent, and also I would say they will probably change again as this progresses in time laid out. I could foresee a time when we say absolutely everybody, and we'll deal with that when it comes. So pardon us for being inconsistent, but that's what the situation demands.
Well, and I would say I wouldn't look at this as inconsistent, but maybe an evolving situation. And we did what we thought and believe, and I still believe, was in the best interests of our employees on Saturday. And today we're doing what we believe is in the best interests of our employees and the public today. So this is going to evolve as we get more information.
Sorry, I just want to repeat, there will be more changes coming, so just be aware, that's all.
Mr. Chair, I want to just clarify, we sent people home, but they had to be available for work. And this was a change, so there's 3 days where that implemented. In fact, some offices, I think, have already implemented this. We have people in our office that are back to work physically, social distancing, because we knew this was coming, but we did not at this point in time lay off anybody. We said you need to be available for work, and many people came in and did little tasks, et cetera, based on their supervisor's request to do that. So just wanted to make that clear.
Jan, please, yeah.
I just want to point out the main item that you did on the order on Saturday was to close the county to the public.
Right.
So that the services remain and the people are here. But that was the action item on Saturday, so that Monday morning the doors could be closed and we could protect the employees as well as the residents. So.
And that's still in place as far as
still
the
in
doors
place.
closed, protecting the employees that way.
And now we
by
have
interview, by
4 options for department heads and elected officials to manage their workforce, which provides more flexibility for everybody. So.
And I just also want to say I'm very grateful to our employees as well. I talked to a number of people who went home Monday and were available to work and even did little tasks, and came back either yesterday or today, and just the flexibility that our employees have shown and their willingness to serve the public is inspiring to me. So I just want to say thank you to everybody as we try to make the right decisions during this time. So
You ready?
I'm ready.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve an order allowing department heads and elected officials to determine employee job duties and location, and ordering all employees to resume work.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none.
Excuse me,
Vote.
do you want to adopt this by emergency procedure?
Does it need to be?
No, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
getting ahead of myself. That's
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
ordinance, I
Right. This is an
apologize.
order.
But should we read it?
Yes.
We should read the order.
It has a lot.
All right.
So
So
read it before we vote?
we have a motion, a second. Why don't we read it and then we'll vote on it?
So
In the matter of allowing department heads and elected officials to determine employee job duties and location, ordering all employees to resume work, this matter came before the Board of Commissioners at a regularly scheduled meeting on Wednesday, March 25th, 2020 at 9:00 a.m., whereas Marion County has enacted Marion County Code Chapter 2.35 pursuant to the authority granted by ORS 401 that provides for executive responsibility in times of emergency, and whereas at a special meeting on March 16th, 2020, the Marion County Board of Commissioners declared a state of emergency in Marion County due to the continued spread of novel coronavirus disease 2019 in Marion County, whereas COVID-19 is a global pandemic and its progress is rapidly evolving, and whereas Marion County has 32 confirmed COVID-19 cases, and
Whereas 2 Marion County residents have already died due to COVID-19, and whereas the Marion County Board of Commissioners is the governing body of Marion County pursuant to ORS 203.230, and is the local public health authority pursuant to ORS 431.415, and whereas Marion County must continue to provide essential county services to its residents, and whereas the health, safety, and well-being of Marion County employees is essential to the county continuing to carry out its essential functions. And whereas on March 18, 2020, the Board of Commissioners temporarily amended Marion County personnel rules to allow those employees whose work can be done remotely to telecommute or work from home until further order from the board. And whereas on March 21st, 2020, the Board of Commissioners held an emergency meeting at which time they ordered all department heads, including elected officials, to instruct all county employees designated as non-essential to stay home from work until further direction from their department head or order from this board. And
whereas on March 23, 2020, the Governor of Oregon issued an executive order strongly encouraging local governments, when telework and work from home options are not possible, to implement and enforce social distancing policies in their offices, consistent with guidance from the Oregon Health Authority. And whereas on March 25, 2020, the Board of Commissioners adopted a temporary social distancing policy for the health, safety, and welfare of employees whose work requires that they work on-site in county offices. Now, therefore, it is hereby ordered that department heads, including elected officials, shall direct their employees work be performed in one of the following ways: telework, including work from home, alternative schedules, or on-site in a manner consistent with the Marion County social distancing policy, so that all county employees may resume work. And further, it is hereby ordered that if an employee chooses not to work due to concern about COVID-19 for themselves or members of their household, they must use their leave accruals. Dated at Salem, Oregon, this 25th day of March, 2020. Okay, I know Commissioner Cameron, you made a motion. Did you second that motion?
Yeah, you did.
Commissioner Brandano?
I did.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes. Thank you. And Jane, why don't you stay for the next one? So this next one is consideration of an ordinance amending Chapter 11.30 of the Marion County Code and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Commissioners. Before you this morning for your consideration is an ordinance that my office drafted at your direction, which amends Marion County Code 11.30, habitation in the right-of-way. Currently, our current ordinance before amendment allows vehicle and individuals to camp in county right-of-way for 72 hours. And after 72 hours, enforcement proceedings can begin by the county, which includes fines and removal of property. The amendments before you today keeps the vehicle camping provisions identical to what it is in the current code, but it prohibits persons from sitting or lying on county right-of-way, which would include county sidewalks. And it also prohibits persons from leaving personal property except for vehicles and RVs for the 72-hour provision already in the code. And the penalties for these two new provisions include fines of $25 for the first occurrence and $50 thereafter. And for personal property that's left more than 24 hours, it may be removed in accordance with law and with the procedure outlined in ORS 203.079. It also provides that individuals who are sitting and lying in the county right-of-way in violation of the new code provisions may be removed and referred to Marion County Law Enforcement Diversion Program and other Marion County community-based programs. And I think this last provision is really central to the goal that I was given from this board and also from the Sheriff's Office, which is to provide assistance to people rather than penalties. And so that they're not just citing people and moving them on, but they're able to refer them to programs that can help them. We did draft this ordinance in conformance with federal and state law. And again, it's drafted, the provisions are drafted in a way that hopefully do address your concerns about being able to balance public need also with the needs of the individuals who may be sitting in line in county right-of-way. The last change is more of a housekeeping change in the ordinance, and that is that under the old ordinance, code enforcement was run through Public Works. A few years ago, code enforcement was changed over to the sheriff's office, so this will be enforced through the sheriff's office code enforcement and enforcement divisions.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any questions for Jane or comments? Salem just passed something similar to this, and we have basically New Marion, as we're calling it, East Salem, within our jurisdiction. And so I think it's important for us to stay consistent with the region on this issue. So, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, even though we're going to adopt this by emergency, this has been something we've been working on for, I know the sheriff's been working with legal counsel for probably 2 or 3 months now, trying to make sure we get this right and that we're treating people fairly and first following the education model, the referral model, and the last thing we ever want to do is cite people for this. But it does give a little bit of teeth and allows our sheriff's department to make sure that we're keeping people safe and, you know, protecting the public good. And I want to say, when we get through this difficult time we're facing with the coronavirus, that it will allow businesses to be safe as well and protected.
Absolutely. Okay.
So Chair Wilson, I'd like to make a motion that we read this ordinance, direct you to read the ordinance by title only twice.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. An ordinance amending Chapter 11.30 of the Marion County Code and declaring an emergency. An ordinance amending Chapter 11.30 of the Marion County Code and declaring an emergency.
And now, Chair Wilson, I'd make a motion that we do approve the ordinance. and
I'll second
declare
the motion.
emergency.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes.
Read it.
Thank you.
Do you want to read the motion? No? Okay. Thank you, Jane. And this ordinance will be
Effective immediately.
posted on the website.
Yes.
Great. Okay, with that, we're done with our action agenda, and we don't have any public hearings. And so it's time for the calendar. And Commissioner Brentano, I think it's actually your turn today.
Well, I see it's a short list, so that'll be nice.
Was it?
Rats.
There are so many meetings that we've canceled, but we are adding them, so I guess people can watch. We try to, except for emergency situations, give all the notice required by law and some. But there's only three items in this next week that will be together. The first is in just a little bit at 10:30 today. A Board of Commissioners, Chief Administrative Officer, Senior Policy and Analyst Executive Session if needed pursuant to ORS 192.660 to begin immediately following this board session. That'll be in the Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. Monday at 9 o'clock, management update. That'll be in the Commissioners Boardroom by phone if needed, 5th floor, 555 Court Street Northeast. And then next Wednesday, our next regular board session here in the Senator Hearing Room, 1st floor, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem.
Very good. Thank you.
Just a point that may change an hour from now. It has been changing. You know, I got a call and said, 15 minutes, get dressed and get on the road to be here in an hour. So we're doing our best to post those things and let people know, but this is a time where we're acting. And I think, Commissioner, you said it earlier, and I sense some emotion, and I know there's a lot of emotion going around in not only us, but the citizens, that we're prepared to do whatever it takes, and it may get worse. before
Almost certainly will
before it
get
gets
worse.
better. So, and we'll react to that.
Fine.
All right, thank you. We're adjourned.
From Northwest Artists. Let's welcome today's guest, Boxing Day.